And happy Tuesday, everyone!
Welcome to the live stream.
Hello.
And we got a special guest, Lily. If y'all remember, she was on months ago as a guest, and she's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
been a little bit.
So she's back again. Hey, those watching replay, I don't know how to tell you any better. Come back when we do a live stream. That way we can ask questions. I mean, this is how it works. So, but hey, we still appreciate y'all. So stay tuned. And tonight's live stream, before we go into the topic, I'm going to welcome everyone. We got Wei, Sam, posted all the links. Appreciate that, brother. You're awesome. Hey, Bunny Viper! Yeah. Hey, y'all. I'm sorry. It was on me that we're late tonight. I'm sorry. Hey, Michelle, welcome. Garcia Aquatics here. I hope everyone's doing awesome. Actually, yeah, we are, Garcia. Long time no see. Hey, Greg! What's up, Cat? Oh, from Australia. Welcome. Hey, Carl Works. How you doing?
Lots of people showing up in the chat tonight.
Yes, Carl. Hey, actually, Carl, I don't know if you met her. I don't know if you were watching a live stream back then already. But she was back the first part of this year. She was on like 3 or 4 times right in a row. So definitely be your questions because she has answers.
Yeah, long time no see.
Yeah. Hey, Robert. Barbecue this Friday? No, actually not. Since you asked, there's volleyball. The youth local church youth is having volleyball. So no, not a barbecue. Sorry. Maybe next Friday. Lobster Lab, welcome. Hola, yeah, welcome. Oh, thanks, Carl. Don't forget the thumbs up. Ring the bell. Since talking about that, I know I'm not there yet, but if you do want to support the channel, that way maybe bring up more guests, more videos, more info. You can send money to PayPal, and that will help out the channel. It's not for me; it's for y'all. Basically, try to encourage the channel to grow, get better. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it up to y'all. Okay.
Thanks, Coro, for dropping links for us as well.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, Michelle. I agree with you 100%. That was a great picture. Beautiful. There you go.
So, Lily, did you study ichthyology in college?
I actually have a degree in psychology.
Oh,
yeah.
I feel like a lot of us are like that. If I had actually finished college, I would have a major in mechanical design and a minor in material science. So,
And what do you do now?
I'm actually working for Aquarium Co-op. I'm customer service.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It allows me to work from home, and it's a really, really cool job. I basically geek out and help customers all day. I'm on the Facebook group. I mod the forum as well, and then, of course, the YouTube live streams and all that. So,
Right.
Hey, welcome everyone. I should have done this earlier.
yeah, what are you doing back there?
I'm working on the laptop. I'm trying to put up a banner. Sorry, y'all.
Thank you, Lobster Lab, for subscribing. If you're here.
Awesome!
Oh yeah, there you are, way up in the chat. I missed that. Yeah, I'm gaining subscribers quite quickly. I've been really blown away by how kind people have been. I do plan to drop another video this week. I have one long form video on my channel so far, so if you want to check that out, it's about the tank that I built, the IKEA tank. And little spoiler here, for those of you that showed up for the live, and of course the people watching after. The tank did not leak. It is now scaped, and it looks absolutely fantastic. The size ended up being so perfect on the stand that I had chosen for it, and it looks really good. I'm really proud of it. The silicone looks awful, but I don't care.
So how soon are you going to give us an update on YouTube? Like a video?
So I actually don't plan to do an update video until next time I post. And the reason for that is because I want to show how the tank kind of develops. And then I also want to have it established enough that I can wrap up the video by adding the fish and showing like the finished product with the fish in it. I think a lot of people do videos just on like the assembly of the scape, and then they show it like when it's filled and finished, and then they never really post updates on it or like show how it develops over time, or like, you know, how the plants grow in. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent with, you know, updating on tanks that I already have set up, so that people can see a more realistic example of, you know, what you can expect with a new planted tank.
Fair enough. That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, Mountain Greenery, welcome. Hey, Vinosky.
We got lots of people showing up.
Yeah.
When they heard that Lily's coming back, they had to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is Corey's company. So Corey from Aquarium Co-op YouTube channel, that is the company that I work for.
Nice.
Yeah. Just wanted to clarify that.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, it's evening. Hey, but good day work for you. Or evening, we don't call it. Be safe, bro. Nice. Your daughter wants to study biology. It's awesome.
If I ever go back to college to actually get a degree, I plan to study biology.
Hey, we made through everyone here. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What time is it? Oh, it's still early yet. So, hey, Lily, do you have an update for us about what you studied over there in Taiwan?
I mean, I was just finishing my bachelor's degree in Taiwan. So, I mean, I did my master's, or my major in psychology, and I was one class short of getting a minor in biology. Unfortunately, that class was only offered at 2 a.m, and I decided it wasn't worth getting a minor. So wow. I technically have a minor in biology. Like, I took all the other classes, all the other requirements and everything. So I was basically there.
Okay.
But while I was in Taiwan, I learned some Mandarin as well. Visited the fish stores, obviously.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Figured out kind of what the hobby looks like over there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Then I graduated, which was kind of wild.
Yeah. Was it kind of a weird transition coming back from that?
Yeah. You know, my school was very small. There was only like 100 other students in my class. And, you know, living with the same 100 people for 4 years and then all of a sudden they're gone was definitely weird. And, you know, all the normal, like, now I have to do adulting things like pay rent.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. Rent, taxes, insurance. Like, we got rear-ended the other day and that's been a nightmare. So all the fun adulting things.
I'm probably going to have to fork over, like, I'm guessing somewhere around like $1,600 at the mechanic to fix my car.
Ouch.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Cheaper than buying a new car, though.
Right.
Also true.
But
good, Michelle. Your higher tank tail looks better. Hey, Michelle, don't worry about it. Just show it. I mean, if nothing else, people will laugh. We're all human. So, hey, Bunny Viper! Big hugs. Good to see you. Fish Fam Link, welcome. Yeah. Okay. That pushes over the 10-minute mark, y'all. That's why I kind of wanted that, anyways. Time for advertisement. I've done this in a while. This is fishfam.link. It's a table display. Those that wondered. It has all your info. For instance, this is my info, but whatever picture you want, they'll put on. There's a QR code at the bottom, right here, and people can scan at a convention, at a plant swap, even at your local job. I haven't done that yet, but at your job, put it on a table on display. People can scan it, and if they ask you about it, you can tell them all about fishon.link. It's a great community of like-minded fish keepers that do YouTube. And as well, you can pick up from fishon.link a badge. That way, you can wear it when you go to Walmart, HEB, your tire shop. Hey, I'll tell you a little story, y'all. I was wearing this one day at my local mechanic, and a local person walked in and said, "Hey, what's that?" I told him all about it, and right then and there, I got a subscriber. So you never know where your next subscriber is going to be from. So go ahead and pick yourself up one. Make sure you order the double-sided one. Your picture, your name at the top, your channel, QR code, give you Instagram, your Facebook, your YouTube. And while you're at it, go ahead and do a shout out to Matt, Nickel Zoo, Fishon.link, y'all, and a shout out to Annette. This is still Guardian. If you're here, thank you. She's the one that did all the landlords. She put those stickers, letters on there. Did a great job. And what I understand is she's also doing the ones for the Clash this year. So, thanks, Annette. You're awesome.
You just outed yourself, the Nano Aquarium guy. I get paid to watch YouTube.
That's not even right. I need a new job. And also, this book here is from a fellow fish tuber hobbyist, Breeding Neocadia Shrimp for Profit. And you can pick your own up off of Amazon. For those that don't know her, Emily, ADHD, Aquatics. And I'll tell you what, y'all, it was dedicated, for those that know him, Jimmy P. He's another fish tuber as well. This book tells you everything you need to know about shrimp. Very good pictures. It's something that you have on your nightstand, coffee table, if you have a coffee table, that is. Very good pictures. And Emily is an experienced shrimp keeper. She's been in the hobby over 16 years. So she knows what she's talking about. So go ahead and give her some support. She's doing her business out of her home. She has a lot of tanks in her basement. So yeah, you give her, send her some love. She's awesome. Okay, that's the only ones I got. I think. Oh, hold on. One more. I thought of this when Lily mentioned to me earlier. Was it last week? There. Aqua Show, y'all. For those that missed it in Dallas, it's coming to Daytona, Florida in November. So get your tickets bought. That way you can go and meet fellow fish tubers. Or if you're not a fish tuber, meet your favorite fish tubers in person. Get to talk to them, ask some questions, get pictures with them, get merch, everything. So,
Except for me.
so if you want to meet Nirvana, I guess you have to wait till next year.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
Sorry.
wait till you can go to Dallas. I don't travel much because of my health problems, so
Yeah. But
I am going to see my family this year for the first time, so that's going to be fun. I'm going up to Washington at the end of September for my 10-year high school reunion.
Nice.
How are you feeling about that? I know people have mixed feelings about high school reunions.
Honestly, I feel really good about it because I feel like I've done really well after high school. I feel like my life is pretty solid. I have awesome friends, an amazing partner. I'm still friends with my best friend from high school, and we're going to go together. It's going to be a lot of fun. And honestly, the thing that I'm most excited about with going to Washington is I'm going to get to see the Aquarium Co-op store expansion. Hopefully, it will be done by then. We've hit some hiccups, but I'm really excited to see it because I started my hobby going to Aquarium Co-op, and back when their store was just a little tiny hole in the wall place, and I'm really excited to see how much they've grown over the years. So.
Nice. Now, I can't personally say that I still am friends with my school friends.
Very few people can say that. I think the main reason that Riley and I are still so close is because we have been on the same wavelength since we met. And we worked together. We spent almost every summer together. We garage sailed together. We have totally different hobbies and interests, but we have kept up our relationship because we genuinely care about each other. And he provides me a different perspective from stuff that, I wouldn't normally consider. So I really value that in him. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, Michelle. Yeah. Nice book. It is. I got it not only because I want to support my fellow fish tuber, but also it's very informational. So if you shouldn't get sick or there's spots on something's happening, you got a personal book right here to check it out. Find out what's going on.
Hey, Amisa or Misa, I can't remember how. It's a Misa, I think.
You've been fish since 1980. So wow. That's been
Fish
years
keeping?
ago.
Yeah, fish keeping has changed a lot since then.
Wow.
Back then, we didn't have nearly the species, the technology. It's crazy to see like literature from back in the 70s and 80s. I have a couple of books on my iPad that are digital, that were digitized versions of books from the 1970s and 80s for fish keeping, and some of the magazines and stuff is just it is crazy the methods that people used to use to keep aquariums back then.
Hey, Missy Aquatics, welcome. Hey, normally I don't worry about my channel too much, but since y'all are pushing me to hit the 500 mark, I want to give you all a big thank you. I don't know what the channel did that y'all want to watch this weirdo right here, but hey, so be it. I hope you can maybe look at something. Maybe you enjoy it. I don't know. But anyways, let's move on. Let's get off of me. Let's get on to whoever is here. Okay. The topic for tonight. How's that sound, Lily? Sound right on?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Awesome. So for those that are coming in yet, this is a topic I'm kind of in the dark about. So I'm going to be learning just as much as y'all will be. And hey, this is not talking about Louisiana crawfish, boil. This is something totally different. Even though those are good. So, I guess
I'm doing a quick search. I actually think they're the same crayfish.
Okay. Ooh.
The ones that you eat and the ones that you can keep in the aquarium that have been selectively bred. I think they're very similar, if not the same species.
Now this is gonna be interesting. I'm ready to learn something already, y'all.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have
Sarah.
ever had friends like come over and be like, "Oh, sushi!" Like when they look at when they look at your tanks or anything like that. Have you ever had friends do that?
Oh, yeah.
I have friends ask me all the time if my shrimp are edible.
Like, yeah, but if you want to pay like $15 to $20 a shrimp, I feel like there are better investments you can make. You know, like,
Yeah.
like technically speaking, yes, you could eat it. However, I don't think it's the best decision.
Right. Now, a lot of if those that don't know, I do have a local church family. There's about 15 families of us that go to church every Sunday. We get together regularly. Anyways, my fellow friends there keep asking me, how soon are we going to have a fish fry? Like, stop it. These are my aquarium fish.
I can see that happening a lot more with the larger fish too. Because a lot of the larger fish, like, your frontosas, they do look a little bit like fish that you would potentially eat. Yeah.
Actually, they are tilapia.
Yeah, they're a type of tilapia. They're just really pretty tilapia.
Yeah, exactly.
Most tilapia looks like your standard average brown cichlid. So
yeah.
What? What's this?
Okay, that makes me really sad because seafood and like shellfish especially is like my favorite.
Hey, Mrs. It's all cool. It's all cool. You're good. I'm just praying that I never get to that point, being allergic to it.
Yeah, I eat a lot of fish too, like because I'm not super big on like red meats. Like I love red meats, but it's not super great for my body. It's hard. It's a harder thing to digest. So I do a lot of fish and a lot of shellfish. One of my favorite restaurants is a seafood restaurant, and they have seafood flown in from the coast every day. It's crazy. Oh wow. Okay. I knew this. Oh shit. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'll keep my hand off the mouse.
Crickets will give you the same allergic reaction. That makes a lot of sense, like biologically, why that would happen. But that is really interesting and good to know. There's a lot of talk of replacing protein sources with insect sources in our processed foods. So
I'm all for replacing protein in foods with insects.
Oh yeah, especially processed stuff where you don't actually need to use real meat. Yeah.
It's like they're so high in protein and they're so easy to breed and they take so little space and there's very little ethical questions on like whether or not they're happy or not because their consciousness is a lot less developed than that of like a cow. So
on top of that, like the cost would go down significantly. So you could create an affordable protein source that is actually good for your body, you know, especially when a lot of our meats have a lot of like added hormones. There's antibiotics that are used, and all that stuff affects the meat that we consume. So, you know, it's definitely promising to see like the development of insect proteins, especially with like, you know, alternatives for foods that are packaged.
Yeah.
Hey, actually, Mr. Cornix, I seen your statement there about wearing gloves, putting hands in the reef tank. Yeah, actually, I do every time I put my hands into my reef tank. I wear gloves up to my shoulders because I don't want to have any excuse to have an allergic reaction in the tank, since there's a lot of high poisons in there.
I found out the hard way that I'm allergic to anemones. I was working in a fish store and I stuck my hands in the saltwater tank I think I was grabbing a coral or something, and there was a basket of anemones in the tank. My whole arm broke out in hives and I could not figure it out because I was like, I've stuck my hand in that tank a million times and nothing's ever happened. but the anemones had just gotten there that day. So yeah.
Okay. Hey, I'm gonna welcome one more person yet. Shark Fin, welcome. Okay.
Shark fin. Ooh, haha. No. It's like a gut reaction, you know.
Okay. Okay. I'll stop looking at the chat. Okay, back to the topic. So, what does a person need to start breeding crayfish? A 5-gallon tank, 10-gallon tank, 20, 55?
Yeah, so crayfish actually get to these specifically are Procambrius clarki, so P. clarki, and they get to be about 5 or 6 inches, more if you factor in the claws. No, not quite that long, but somewhere around like this.
Yeah.
Potentially a little bigger with the claws. So it's actually very similar to what you can do with bettas. So a lot of breeders will keep bettas in like a lot of jars lined up and do like 50% water changes daily or something like that, to raise them. And then of course, when you send them off to their homes, you recommend like, filter, heater, a couple gallons maybe. So you can do that with ghost crayfish too, if you want to keep them in like a 2.5 or a 5 gallon with frequent water changes, just for your breeders. But if you're just keeping them as a hobbyist, it's usually recommended to have at least 10 gallons of crayfish. And they do get kind of territorial. So
Does that mean I have a pair in a tank or what?
Well, no, you can have as many in a tank as you want. You just have to have the floor space for it, since they don't really occupy any of the vertical space. If you have a low boy or anything with a large footprint, then you can have more. It depends. They say 10 gallons per crayfish because that's a good rule of thumb, but really it depends more on the footprint of the tank rather than the actual volume.
So I have found that the best way to explain how much space a fish or aquatic animal needs is by like a cubic space instead of gallons. So like for crayfish, what I used to tell people in the store is each crayfish needs about a 10-inch cubed space.
Right.
So that they have their own territory. And it's the same thing with a lot of different fish. Like, you don't have to worry so much about that with tetras and schooling fish, but any fish that is going to establish a territory. German blue rams are a really good one to use as an example, because they will take up about a foot cubed of territory per pair. So you can have multiple pairs together, but if you don't have enough space, you're going to have territory disputes. And some of them actually need more space than others, so it's better to have more space than not enough. So in terms of when you're recommending space for pets, like aquatic pets, if you work in a store or anything like that, try to break it down to like an actual visual amount of space that people can see. And that usually works out a lot better, I have found.
Yeah. And as Cora was saying, another thing that is important is a lot of hiding spaces. So unlike fish, when crayfish grow, they actually molt the exoskeleton. And then for like a day or two, they're extra squishy and extra vulnerable. So they'll pick a cave, hide in, and defend it. I've actually built like a crayfish condo tower before. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the Pleco condos that they have, where it's just a bunch of slate kind of glued together into lots of little crevices. I've done something similar with PVC for the crayfish.
Hey, Better Aquatics.
Crayfish will eat anything if they can catch it. That's if it can get caught, it will be eaten. So if there is a molted crayfish that doesn't really have a place to protect itself, it is possible that it will get eaten. It's also possible that it wouldn't, but it is a risk. And once you get into like the slightly fancier ones, the slightly more expensive ones, it's not really a risk that you want to take. Also, just in general, if you're going to have a pet, you might as well make sure you're caring for it properly. But the good news about them catching anything and eating anything is that they will eat anything. So flake food, pellets, algae wafers, they're pretty omnivorous. I'm sure many of you have caught them outside in like streams and ponds and things like that.
And then boiled them?
And that, well, it depends on what pond you get them from. I don't trust the ponds near my house.
Yeah.
So you're talking about eating. Do they eat the plant, like dead plant, like the mom, the sludge?
No, they don't eat like waste.
Okay.
They don't eat fish poop.
They eat a lot of plant matter.
Any plant matter they'll eat.
Okay.
Also, if you have crayfish, give up on having plants.
Okay.
I'm just gonna give it to you straight.
The only way that you can have plants with crayfish is if you've got a pothos hanging out of your hang on the back filter. That's basically.
I was gonna say plastic, but yeah, that works too.
Yeah. Right. So, how often do they molt?
It happens pretty frequently when they're small and they're growing faster, and it kind of slows down as they get older. And so like once a month or even once every 2 to 3 weeks when they're itty bitty, and then it gradually starts to slow down to once a month, once every 2 months, once every 4 months, and then eventually once they're full grown, it's maybe once or twice a year.
Okay.
Crayfish and crawfish are in fact the same thing. Crayfish, crawfish, crawdad, freshwater lobster, mud bug, those are all the same term.
Hey, I'm quick to do a shout out. Keep Austin gardening. Hey, for those that don't know, this is a fellow fish tuber, YouTuber, I guess one call it. The local here in Austin to me. I met him last night. She is awesome. Go make sure and subscribe to her. Give her your love. Right now, they just set up a pond in the backyard. It is gorgeous. I mean, we're talking about a pond that you would see on a pond tour. It's that good. So I'm actually excited to go and see it. So, hey, by the way, it was great meeting you last night. Keep doing what you're doing. Someday we'll have you up here in the live stream. So, okay. Back to the topic. I wanted to shout her out. She's awesome. Okay. So if they molt too many times, is that a result of bad water, or
If what?
if the
If
crayfish?
you molt too many times. I feel like crayfish only molt when they grow.
Okay.
So like if they're growing really fast, there is a potential that they could molt really quickly. And the only thing that would really pose a problem is if like the water was too soft and they didn't have enough minerals to like regrow their shell. Like most crustaceans, they need like a good amount of hardness in the water. The pH doesn't matter as much as long as it's, relatively neutral or higher, then you're usually okay. But if there's no calcium in their diet or in the water, then they can't rebuild their shell.
I was going to mention the calcium. That's a big one for any crustacean and snail, any invertebrate really.
Yeah, so if you're going to feed a specific food, going for a crab or shrimp food as like their staple is usually a really good idea because it's got that additional calcium that they need to build healthy shells.
And should this be the regular diet, a higher calcium?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Do crayfish eat algae or no?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they like to graze. They have all the little legs that they'll use to like pick at things and pick up things. So they'll pick at it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a main part of their diet, but most of their behavior is just foraging behavior where they'll walk around and pick everything up, see if it's edible.
Yeah, Koro made a good point. Oops. And that one, and then the calcium in the water plays a minimum role. Yes.
So, if you're doing water changes regularly, don't you need to keep adding calcium to the tank? Because when you do water change, you're pulling it out, right?
Depends on what your tap water looks like, because most people have a decent amount of calcium in their tap water. The only places that maybe wouldn't be such a big thing is like way up north, like where I'm from in the Northwest. All of that up there is clay and like snow melt from the mountains. So the water is really, really soft. So most people, even the people on well water, will tend to have a GH of right around 200 parts per million at maximum, which, is great for most fish species, but for some of the crustaceans, it can be detrimental because if the water is too soft and too acidic, then it can actually start to dissolve the shell a little bit. We see that a lot in mystery snails and nerite snails. If the water is too soft, it can start to kind of eat away at that outer layer of shell.
Hippie John is back in the building, yo. He is back. This is awesome. Hey, Hippie John, I'm looking forward to your live streams. We all missed you, so welcome back, brother. Can you keep a variety of different crustaceans together, or will they eat each other?
A variety of different crayfish, like different species?
No, crustaceans, crabs.
Oh, crustaceans.
Shrimp. Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Definitely not crabs. I would say no for crabs and crayfish. Crabs and shrimp and crayfish and shrimp are usually pretty okay. I found that most shrimp are pretty good at getting out of the way. I've usually only kept them with cherry shrimp, though.
Okay.
I would say things like bamboo shrimp or ghost, like what are they called? The vampire shrimps. Anything like that's slightly bigger and exhibits a similar behavior, but is not as aggressive, would probably have a hard time. But yeah, cherry shrimp are fine.
Crabs are generally aggressive towards anything, so I just crabs with anything that you don't mind losing, maybe. But in general, like they will even try to catch fish that are much larger than them, so just not a good idea. I've always wanted to keep vampire crabs, but I don't have anything that they would not escape out of. And I know that they would escape. So they can even climb like the little tiny bead of silicone that runs up the side of a rimless tank. So I have to get like a bowl or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of fish can you keep with crayfish without each other eating? Yeah, eating either one.
Very little.
Okay.
I've seen Danios kept with crayfish. So like fast moving minnow type fish.
Nothing with long fins. Nothing that's a bottom dweller.
So no loaches?
Golden wonder killifish might be a good one because they stay at the very top.
Yeah.
They don't swim mid-level even, really. So if you were to get something that stayed at the very top of the water line, then that would probably work out.
Yeah, hatchetfish, African butterfly, crayfish, at least the ghost crayfish are really hardy. They'll thrive in whatever water you throw them in, like as long as there's enough calcium and not too many nitrates. But I mean, I've pulled them out of like in the wild, like this much water. I just see them like walking down, and then I go to the pond, and the pond is filthy, algae bloom, whatever, and they're fine. So they're pretty indestructible when it comes to fish. Hatchetfish.
And can you keep crayfish in ponds as well outside?
Yeah, as long as you cover it though, because crayfish have a bad habit of wandering around.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. If you have crayfish, cover your tanks. I cannot tell you enough that those tanks need to be covered because if there's a way out, they will find it.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of in the same realm as crabs in that way, except a lid will usually actually contain them. Crabs are small enough, the vampire crabs at least are small enough that they can lift the lid up a tiny bit and make it more.
What if you have a deep tank? Will that prevent and keep the water down below from the top of the tank? Will that prevent them getting out?
Yeah, most of the time. Just remember that crayfish have so many muscles in their tail, and if they flick backwards, they can propel themselves out.
Right.
I was like,
they might
I've
not
seen them like
but
jump pretty far before.
Yeah.
And Coro Works made a good point. They can be an invasive species risk. So just be careful if you are trying to keep them outside. I don't think it's a good idea to keep them in a pond just because they're gonna disappear on you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you also can't see them in the pond, so it's like you could put them there. You could also like put a native species of crayfish in there, which would be fine,
Right.
and then you could have crayfish, and then you'll never see it anyways. But
Right.
yeah,
Do they reproduce pretty fast?
they're not fast per se, but they have huge clutch sizes.
I was gonna say they
So
carry
what's-
a lot of eggs.
A young female will start at like 100, and then a more mature female can go up to 900, I think.
And at what age do they start?
I don't know if it's so much an age, so much as a size. But honestly, one of the things I wanted to talk about is actually the lack of research on these species. Of like, yeah, everybody knows how to breed them. You throw them in a tank together. But unlike bettas, for example, there's no research on color genetics. There's no research on like size or other factors that influence breeding. The general vibe is like, if the bigger the female, the more eggs she's going to have. Yeah, vibes. We're vibing. But I would say around 8 months, maybe, to adulthood, like sexual maturity, adulthood.
Hi, kids. Yep, we're kids. Hey, welcome everyone.
So for those of you that are wondering, this is what a female that is buried looks like. They carry a lot of eggs. So, and they will actually, some species will carry the babies in their swimmerettes, in their little, you know, in this underside of their tail here, until that they're large enough and they have enough of a shell behind them to survive on their own. I do know a little bit about crayfish.
I was going to say, you do seem pretty knowledgeable for...
Oh, I feel like I don't know about enough about something because I just haven't had a lot of experience until, you know, I realized that like I just do an obsessive amount of research. I don't know. I feel like I in order to help other people online, I will do research just for my own reference, you know.
And to answer Koro's question, I also keep the self-cloning ones. So we can definitely go over that at any point.
Let's do it now. Go ahead.
Great. Okay, so the self-cloning crayfish are also called marmocrebs, and they're basically a brown species of crayfish with really pretty marbling, and they reproduce asexually. So they just, they're all female. Every single member of the species is female, and she just clones her DNA and makes lots of little babies. And I currently have 2 right now, as well as the red claw crayfish. These are actually a ridiculously invasive species, especially in Europe right now. Germany has been having lots of problems with it, which is surprising given how responsible the rest of the fish keepers there are. But all it takes is one. But yeah, they're pretty cool. They don't get as big as the ghost crayfish or some of the other crayfish species. So they can be kept a little smaller, but just like the ghost crayfish, they'll go after all your plants. They'll go after any fish they can catch. But they're a neat little creature to have around. So
cool. Here's a question.
I did not. Let's just put it this way. Let's just say that all creatures are related in some sense of the word. But yeah, invertebrates especially.
I was going to say invertebrates tend to, they tend to all diverge from similar branches. And it's actually really interesting because there's a few species of crabs that diverged like way too far back. Like they evolved independently into crabs. There's an interesting concept that
crabization.
I know.
Are you in the Wild Green memes group?
Oh, I used to be. I don't remember if I had like I think I had a direct beef with one of the admins
Oh, that'll do it.
for being really ableist.
Mm.
Directly at me, like really
Mhm.
not good. So I actually no longer recommend that group because the admin team is pretty horrible to disabled people. So
Well, I still like to stalk for the memes. They have some pretty good stuff. But
yeah,
you know,
have,
back to the topic of crabs evolving separately 5 separate times.
yeah, it's a super interesting concept. And like, if you actually do some reading about it, it's like, I mean, aquatic life is just incredibly diverse anyway. So the fact that crab evolution has happened so many times is just wild.
It's because it's the perfect shape.
I
We should all
know.
try and evolve a crab.
So, is there different colors that you can get from ghost crayfish when you're
I'm so
breeding
happy
them?
you asked. This is actually one of my own projects that I'm working on. So, as usual, a lot of breeders overseas have been working on some really cool color strains.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, right now, I'm trying to work on getting some of those imported to the US. But ghost crayfish can come in pretty much any color you can imagine them. They are a lot like cherry shrimp in that sense. But the thing that I'm interested in studying is the piebald sort of appearance, where you can have a patchwork of white and color. So if you look up ghost crayfish, there's a couple different named varieties. Like there's the fireball, which is an orange and white patchwork.
Mm-hmm.
There's the blue ghost, which is an orange, blue and white patchwork, things like that. But then it can even get more complicated, and you can have tricolor ghosts. You can have dark blue with like white paint speckles almost. You can have red. You can have pink is the newest one that's come out. There's also like some darker purple, and then any combination of those colors. What hasn't been studied is how they interact. So there's been a lot of line breeding. So obviously, when you breed a pink to a pink, you get pink. But if you breed a blue to an orange, or like what color combinations can exist and which ones cannot because the genes exist at the same locus, hasn't been studied. So that's something that I want to try doing. I have 6 right now, 4 blue ghosts and 2 orange ones. And then I'm hoping to get some imported and then try and crossbreed and see kind of the patterns of inheritance and things like that.
Right.
That'll
So,
be interesting because the way that it works with shrimp is that if you crossbreed two
You get
colors,
brown.
actually not always. It depends on how far down the line from the wild type it is. So like I have been working on, and I unfortunately lost my Bloody Mary colony, so I have to start this project over at some point. Finding true Bloody Mary shrimp is a nightmare.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to do was create a shrimp that had a red body with a blue shell, so that it appeared kind of like an indigo violet color.
Right.
But the genes for that, the reason that that would work is because both of those lines are separated far enough from the wild type that you're not just going to revert back to the wild type if you mix those genetics again. So,
Right.
you know, of course it's going to take forever to clean up the genetics and stuff, but you know, I have to wonder with crayfish, because I feel like all of the mutations that I have seen are direct from the wild type. Is that true? Or is there like lines?
I wouldn't say it is. There's definitely lines.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it is following the same path as shrimp.
So I
So
would
it's not-
think then the further away you get from the wild type, the more likely you are to create something new, because you're not going to just revert back to the wild color pattern.
Right. I would say it is still more recent than shrimp breeding. So I think the genetics are a little more unstable. But I still want to study like kind of how the inheritance works.
So when you breed, when you're line breeding, for example, do you get colors that you have to cull for that are the wild type colors in your experience? Yeah. Okay.
Well, the ones I bred were blue and blue.
Oh,
like, yeah, I think they were already related, so I didn't get any wild types from that. So this will definitely be an experiment. It'll be my first time seeing how many wild types I get in percentage-wise, and then seeing if I can figure out the pattern of inheritance, which is great because I did take a class on that.
I'm really interested to see what you find out, because genetics are something that fascinate me, but I understand like this much of it, you know?
It is hard. It's not an easy topic, but I mean, when you think about all the things that they do, it makes sense.
And genetics in general, like, so much can happen that affects it. Environment, especially in aquatic species, environment actually plays quite a large role in genetics. And, you know, the topic just fascinates me, and eventually I will dive deeper into that side of it.
Welcome, Dave Crane. See ya. Surf City, Cichlids, welcome. Hey, welcome, everyone. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that, but hey, good question. Hey, moderators, do you mind helping keep Austin gardening? That question. How do you join Fishon.link? Let them know how to do it.
So, yeah, I agree. It's going to be really interesting to see where the breeding goes.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. That's been one of the things I've wanted to do for a while. And now that I'm free from college, I can finally do it.
It's really interesting, the difference between, so specifically Caridina shrimp. There are a number of Caridina shrimp that are only produced by crossbreeding. So, you know, that could eventually transition over into other species. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, and to answer, where was it? Christy's question, we're talking about two different species. So the first one that does clone itself is the marmorcrab, or the self-cloning crayfish, and the main focus of this live stream is actually the ghost crayfish, which is the Louisiana red claw, but very selectively bred.
So how soon will there be a competition?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like it's going to be another 10 years.
Hey, in another 10 years, y'all, Lily's going to be the president of this competition kind of thing.
I sure hope so. I would love to compete with fish that are, well, invertebrates, I guess, that I breed, but the fish hobby.
Yeah.
So this is what ghost crayfish can look like. So there's a lot of different color patterns. These are
that's more like the wild type. You can see like a lot of the brown showing through, but the piebald is what I'm wondering about. Is like what causes the fragmenting of the pigment. So
like this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all sorts of different ones. Ooh, that one's got some cool patterning to it. But yeah, so if you're not sure what we're looking at here, what we're talking about, that's these guys. So if you're
the more intense spotting that's in that picture, they call that the ghost cow.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure again how that gene is different from like just the regular piebald fragmentation. So it's definitely something I want to research. You know, if I ever do like a master's or something, maybe that'll be my topic.
Do a thesis on crayfish. That would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess technically nobody has to, but somebody should.
Well, the only way that we get more information, like good science out there about these species, is if people like, you know, potentially you do studies on them. So it would be super cool if you did that.
So, hey, those watching, if you have questions about crayfish or anything like that, put them in the chat.
Yeah.
And if you want Air Bucket, Advanced Aquatics, that way it'll give us attention to it. That way we get Liz to answer it before we head out of here, So, okay. So, Lily, what would be an ideal tank for a crayfish? The substrates, the decor, the filter, the lights, the whole 9 yards. What would be an idea setup?
Yeah, so this is going to depend a lot on what species you have, especially when you get into the Sherax family. So Sherax Pulcher, for example, is really gorgeous, but also much more delicate than the red claws. But basically what I have for mine right now is sand and lava rock and driftwood. I would say driftwood is always a good thing to have in your crayfish tanks because they like to sit there and graze on it. But besides that, there's really not a lot that you need to do. I've kept them in sand, I've kept them in gravel, I've kept them with rocks, I've kept them with driftwood. I've kept them in everything from a 10-gallon to a 72-gallon. So they're really unproblematic,
So what's the best kind of filter would you recommend?
I personally always use sponge filters now. Ever since I started into actually breeding things, it just makes it a lot easier to not accidentally lose fry. But also, I think they like having the sponge filter because they sit on it and graze there too, since it collects a lot of little plant matter particles or leftover food or whatever. They like to pick at it. So I would say sponge filter.
Hey y'all, if you're still here, I don't mind if you head out. Hey, Jimmy P is going live, so go there and give him some love. And for those that don't know, he's the same person, same Jimmy P, that his book here was dedicated to. So go there and watch him. Give him some love. Okay. Does it matter on what kind of lighting, or is that just for the aquarium hobbyist own personal enjoyment?
It's for your own personal enjoyment. Some fish are more shy if the lights are too bright or anything like that. I've never had a problem with crayfish. You can keep them with full lights. You can keep them with no lights. Again, very unproblematic.
Do they hide most of the time?
Mine don't. They're pretty outgoing. They like to just wander around the tank and see if they can find any food to eat because they are primarily scavengers. Mm-hmm. If something swims by them, they'll try and grab it, but it's not like they're actively hunting for anything. So at least the ghost crayfish will walk around a lot, and you'll see them pretty much all the time. And then if you don't see them, they either molted or they're carrying eggs. So.
Amissa, so that's a good question. Which crayfish would you recommend for a new keeper, and how forgiving are they to mistakes?
I do like my red claws. I am very biased towards them because they're my favorite crayfish species. I would say in order of tolerance, you have the red claws, then you have the electric blue and the vanilla lobsters. Which are same family, different species. So they're also Procambrius, but those are Alieni. So ghost crayfish, electric blue, vanilla lobster, dwarf crayfish, and then actually I'd put the self-cloning crayfish, then dwarf crayfish, then everything else. Mm-hmm. So that's my
generally speaking though, I think most crayfish are pretty hardy. If you can successfully keep a fish, you'll be able to keep a crayfish.
Yeah, the main cause of death that I've heard amongst me and other hobbyists is climbing out of the tank. And that has nothing to do with, Yeah, the dwarf crays are a lot nicer than the big ones. They won't go after your plants as much, and even if they do, they're smaller, so they do less damage. But then they also won't go after your fish, and they are a little more shy.
So, I got a question for you. Could I keep these ghost crayfish with discus? Or is the water temperature too warm for them?
The water temperature is not the issue. It's whether or not you want to take that risk. Because again, if there's any moment where there's a discus like resting on the bottom of the tank, like at night or anything like that, there is a potential that the crayfish will go after it regardless of size and kind of take some chunks out of it. I think I see some agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an expensive fish to risk a chunk being taken out of.
Yeah. Okay. But like for my frontosas, that'd be a good option, right? No.
Yeah, I mean, your frontosa might also eat the crayfish.
Yeah.
You've got to think. There's also the reverse problem where if you put them with anything too big, I've seen people keep them successfully with smaller African cichlids, something that's like aggressive enough to hold their own.
Like in Bunos.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then small enough to like not immediately think of the crayfish as a snack.
Actually, no, that might be too small. The Maltese, the Shudrellas.
Maltese, I think, are probably going to be too small, and they're also going to be too close
docile, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that last question was the maximum size they get, and that depends on the species. But the species we're talking about, what do you think? Like between 4 and 5 inches?
Between 4 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never seen them that large, but that's, usually what I see them at is like 4.5, 5 inches. About average.
Cool. Okay, hey Lily, do you have any more wisdom for us that we haven't asked you?
Ooh.
Because I asked you all my questions. I got like probably 20 questions here, and they're all answered.
I would say that keeping crayfish, I absolutely love it, but it's one of those things where you have to build the tank around the species, and it's not something that you can just add to any tank. But I think it's worth it. Harder link Tanganyika cichlid. Again, I don't know if it's something I'd recommend. It's also not something I'm going to dissuade you from. It really depends on like your personal risk tolerance, because at the end of the day, each fish also has its own personality. So whether or not, like I've had very docile crayfish, I've also had very aggressive, peaceful fish. So it really just depends on like if you have a backup plan. Like I'm always for trying weird combinations as long as you have a backup plan. Like if it doesn't work, you move it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How about, maybe this is a crazy question. How about in a paludarium? Or is that just totally a no-no?
Oh, 100% yes. Crayfish are a great fit for a paludarium because again, it's more about like floor space or footprint rather than like vertical space for crayfish. And I think paludariums do that really well because half of it is already taken up by land.
Right.
So then, especially because crayfish are very hardy and do well in those conditions, and you can make it a species-only tank. You can see your crayfish all the time. So that's it's a strong candidate for a paludarium setup.
Would also be a good way to incorporate plants without having them eat it, because you can put plants on vertical.
Right.
And they generally won't, as long as it's high enough up, they probably won't be able to get to them.
And if you have enough of them,
they don't go after the roots of the plants. They only seem to be interested in the leaves because I have aquaponic systems in all of my tanks. So I have like the standard pothos and things like that, but I also have like tomatoes and basil and like other herb-like things or other garden plants. And they clean the roots, but they don't eat them, which I think is pretty practical. So
that is interesting because I've definitely heard that there are other species of like herbivorous crustacean fish that will eat the plant roots. So it's interesting that they wouldn't.
Yeah, maybe mine are just weird. It's also possible, like I'm generalizing from my personal experience. It's possible that like all the crayfish I have are related. Maybe they all share a genetic quirk.
That, or maybe it's the aquarium keeper.
Maybe. But like I have, let me tell you about my setup real fast. It's a 72-gallon bow front, and it just has a bunch of lava rock and driftwood. I have the 6 ghost crayfish, 2 self-cloning crayfish, and the dwarf crayfish, and some guppies, which seem to be doing okay so far.
And they're all cohabitating.
Yeah, well, because I think the guppies tend to stay at the top, and since there's so much space, there's actually very little time where they interact. And I think once the crayfish get bigger, I'll probably either move the guppies or like move the crayfish, depending on what happens. But yeah, and then I have the aquaponics set up. So I have racks at the top that have expanded clay balls and are growing a bunch of plants and natural sunlight. So I mean, no plants, but it ends up looking okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you can absolutely have a beautiful tank without plants. You just have to, work a little harder on the hardscape.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It definitely helps when you have gorgeous fish.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and one of the cool things about crayfish being bottom dwellers is you can keep them with a really cool top dweller that, it like the African butterfly fish. I would love to have some of those. They are so cool. They're actually one of my favorite species. Unfortunately, I do not have the space for a proper environment for them. But eventually, someday.
Yeah.
So are they crayfish? Are they 100% freshwater, or are there some that are brackish or saltwater?
All the ones I deal with are freshwater. I think when you go into saltwater, you get lobsters.
Okay. So, in other words, they're cousins?
Yeah, I don't want to say decisively yes, but I feel like they are. They're related somewhere down the line, but I can't say conclusively yes or no because I actually don't do any saltwater stuff at all. So.
Yeah. So another question brought to my mind: could you theoretically get the ghost crayfish to saltwater, change it over slowly?
I don't think they're equipped to handle with saltwater.
Like acclimation process?
Apparently, you can slowly acclimate them to brackish. They will not tolerate full salt water.
Okay.
But I guess they won't breathe in brackish water, and they probably are not thriving in brackish.
Yeah.
But you can theoretically do it. I don't think I would, because there's really no brackish species that you would that I can think of, at least, that you may want to keep with them, that I like need salinity in the water. So I don't know why you would want to do that, but apparently they can tolerate it, which does not surprise me because they
can tolerate a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, funny story. One of the breeding males that I used to have, I ordered him from someone online, and the shipping was really, really rough with the box. And even though it was double bagged, the bag had like burst open inside the box because they crushed it during shipping. And it was the middle of winter. So I go outside because it was also delayed by a week in the mail. So at this point, I go outside, I'm holding this crushed box, and I'm like, okay, I have to open it outside because there's probably a dead fish inside. It's going to smell awful.
Right.
I open the box, which is still dripping, by the way, and it's fine. Delayed for a week, the bag popped, all the water is gone, the box is like
that's
crushed.
Really impressive.
And the crayfish is just like, hee.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad he ended up being okay.
Me too. He was gorgeous.
Gotta be stressful.
So does that mean that they would be happier if you had some place in the tank that they could get dry?
No, they like to be nice and moist. Okay. They will walk from one body of water to another if something is unsatisfactory, but they try to avoid that even in nature because it makes them very susceptible to predation. So things like raccoons will go after them, like crows and other birds will go after them, foxes will go after them.
And people.
And people. I feel like people have tools to catch them, though. They don't have to wait till nighttime.
Right.
So they don't need any land. They're fully aquatic. They can survive outside of water for a little while until they dry out, but it's not something that they try to do or that's good for them.
Right. Hey, we're over the hour limit, y'all. Any quick questions before we head out?
going to eat them, it doesn't really matter how you keep them, right?
No.
Right. The best way to keep them is put them in a big pot, add some seasoning.
Cajun spice, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm not really a fan of crayfish. I like seafood. I feel like crayfish just.
Oh, you mean as a food? I was going to be very insulted that you like had
No.
personal beef with my crayfish.
No, I like them as ornamental like pets. I am not a fan of eating them. I just think there are so many better seafoods out there.
Oh, there absolutely are. But crayfish is like cultural, you know?
Yeah, it is. And like I appreciate the culture of it and like, you know, where it comes from. But I'm from the Northwest. Like the seafood up there is very different from what it is here in the South.
Yeah.
And I actually did try a crayfish before I moved to Texas, and I was like, eh. Kind of tastes like dirt a little bit, like.
Maybe they weren't cleaned properly. Yeah.
Yeah. I have heard that the reason that the ones that I tried tasted like dirt is because you have to clean them properly. But I got to be honest, guys, I don't have any desire to try them again. This is funny because the only reason that lobsters are considered fancy is because they're very hard to ship. So the cost of shipping them inland without them going bad is very expensive. Like on the coastal cities in the early US, there were actually prison riots because they used to feed prisoners nothing but lobster for like months at a time because it was cheap and plentiful. So yeah, it's really interesting how the perception of a food will change depending on your location just because of availability and travel.
Hey, good question. Is there anyone in the hobby that keeps a lobster in their tank?
Oh, I know a few.
There's a YouTuber.
There's quite a few people who keep saltwater lobsters. I would say more so now because there's like, for some reason, people buying them at like fish markets to rescue them.
Yeah, right.
And they're bringing them home to be a pet. That's a very strange concept to me. But
yeah,
there are plenty of people who are doing it. And then there's also, the people who are keeping wild caught fish in their tanks as well. So let's see. I feel like there's something I missed in the chat. Yeah, Moro set it up here. They're all separate.
Okay.
They're similar. They have similar characteristics, but they're very separate. So it's kind of like the crab thing we were talking about, where they evolved at the same time, but in separate ways.
Okay,
yes.
I think
mud bugs. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of people call them down here.
Yeah. But you kind of have to wonder, who was the first person to have one?
Oh, I think people have been keeping crayfish for a long time.
No, eating it.
Oh, eating it?
Right.
Oh, humans have a desire to eat pretty much anything. Have you ever heard of some of those, like, in more rural areas, they're like, you have to boil this 9 times to make it not poisonous, and then you can eat it. Like, humans are very determined to eat pretty much anything.
Yeah.
So.
The plant you're referring to is poke.
Yeah. So.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. Anyhow, before we head out, Lily, what do you want to say to the fish fam?
Wait about 2 years and then order some ghost crayfish from me, because I'm so excited to like bring some of the more rare strains to the US and really encourage people to keep these because they're really awesome and they make for a great beginner species. And
they're illegal in Texas, which
they're illegal in Texas. That makes sense. Yeah. I'll have to send you something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Nirvana, what do you got to say to the fish fam?
Same thing I always do. Stay curious, friends.
Yeah. Hey, those still watching yet? You guys rock. I don't know how we do it every week. That you stay up and watch us crazy talk about whatever. Anyways, head over to Jimmy P. Give him your love. What would be a good hashtag? Hashtag Lily. And thanks again, Lily, for coming up. You're awesome. I definitely want to have you back some in the future. So, until then,
Sounds perfect.
have a good evening.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.